With this nondescript label here, you wouldn't even be able to tell that this is actually the world famous Castings Boulders bin. Yeah, it's got European night crawlers in it, but the number of worms that we started it with was estimated to be very low. And yeah, I'm just noticing that I forgot to put a glove on. But we've gone back to that a few times now, questioning whether that original estimated worm count is even valid anymore, because it does seem like the numbers have gone up. And that was the one stat that I probably should have jotted down. Some sort of under 150 is the number that sticks in my mind as far as how many worms were thought to inhabit this system, to see if they could help us break down these little boulders that the whole system is made up out of. And, well, other than the stat that I missed, the worm count estimate, there's other things here about when it was last fed, how many feedings there's been, and the age of the bin is 164 days now. What we've been doing with the feedings for the past few feedings, past 3 or 4 I would say, I don't remember exactly though, is doing the ping pong routine, moving the feeding zone from one edge of the bin to the other. Last time we were pretty generous with the bedding. In the past, I think the thinking had been to let only the castings boulders be their bedding, so they're forced to be in it or something. I don't know. I forget what the logic was behind it. More recently, I've just been feeling like, it's probably a good thing to give them some additional bedding. Last time we were nice and generous. The castings boulders, well, we've talked about certain things in the past, such as trying to just crush some of these castings boulders to help them crumble a little bit from their form that they've been in for how long now? Years in some cases. It seemed like that would only be possible if the material were left to just be wet and damp and soaked through for an extended period of time. And at this point it is starting to feel like without me coming through here to break this stuff up, it probably wouldn't happen based on the worms doing it for us. So, especially if you're, setting up a nice, beautiful place to come and hang out with the ping pong feedings. This time we gave them a big, generous amount of bedding. And I think it's a little more than we've done in the past, so it's not too surprising that there's a whole lot of that left over. And, well, in keeping with the whole ping pong feeding theme, we probably should have left this excavated on this side, right? Because that's where the next feeding is going to go. But whatever, let's deal with that after we've finished checking out how the worms have done with their last feeding from 13 days ago. It was plums and strawberries. And that plastic we had covering the feeding zone definitely seems to have done a nice job keeping the moisture of those delicious foods down in the feeding area. Well, definitely not a deep bin, pretty shallow actually. And I guess to find leftovers of the bedding is not too surprising, but leftovers of that food, even if it's a small worm population, I kind of guess that those delicious fruits would probably get eaten pretty quickly. So I thought I'd look through here really quick to see if we do find any leftovers. But I don't see anything of the sort. Stuff looks really nice over here. Kind of makes me even wonder if we were to set up another migration zone for them on the opposite side, ping pong feeding, would it be best to haul all this lovely worm occupied leftover bedding over, and then it would be, I guess it would be ping pong, but from their perspective it would just be kind of not being required to traverse the material of the bin, and that's the whole idea behind going ping pong. So it wouldn't make sense. This stuff would have to just stay here. If there's leftover food in this, I guess they'll just work it down, and the bedding itself would probably remain as a something that the worms would want to stay in. Or would the best thing be to blend this stuff in with the castings boulders? I think I just found some leftover plum. Maybe. I'm not going to taste it. Oh, here's another thing that feels kind of squishy. So yeah, I guess we did just bump into some leftovers of the last feeding almost 2 weeks ago that they got that stuff. And, well, there's leftovers here. To me, it seems like this feeding zone, as it was given to them a couple weeks ago, should just stay as is. They'll deplete it, and then they'll go looking for more stuff, and I guess what they're going to be getting is going to be quite tempting. I wouldn't be surprised if they came over for it right away. Leave those plums behind, because look at that big cucumber. Well, it's half of a cucumber, but half of what had been a really huge cucumber. Some coffee, and just assorted stuff out of the bottom of one of the freezer bags that I keep the worm foods in. So, well, you know, that was kind of fun, but I think it's time to give them their yummy food. It's, I guess I'm going to start leveling off here to see how big of a feeding zone I've created for myself. Perhaps I can even nudge the past feeding zone over. It feels to me like I've kind of left some food right there on the surface. I don't know why it feels that way to me, but I'm hoping it's not going to cause trouble. The only coverings we're really using here is that newspaper that you saw, covering the section where there's not been the most recent feeding, and then the plastic covering only where we've had the most recent feeding. It does almost seem to me like every time I'm handling the castings boulders, perhaps it would be a good practice at this point, since the stuff is giving quite nicely. Even though there's a lot of it and it would take forever to do the whole bin like in a single shot, but if every time I'm in here anyway feeding and moving stuff over to make room for the next ping pong feeding, I might as well be crushing this stuff and breaking it apart and trying to make it finer than boulders. And then maybe at some point we could consider the boulder experiment done, and definitely requiring human interaction to make the boulders something other than boulders. Alright, so now I think we've created a large enough space. I've got this funny, colorful collection of bedding here. I've actually got like twice as many colors. I think I've got like an orange, I got a yellow, I got a blue, you know, I got some other colors as well. So I made myself this interesting little collection of different colored shredded paper and cardboard, mainly cardboard. So the stuff is all quite stiff, and most of it has the brown other side where the color wasn't applied. So I figured, you know what, it seemed like just the right amount to drop in here and give to the wormies as part of today's feeding. Another generous portion of bedding, though, you must admit. And I kind of like that, you know. It feels to me like being really stingy with the bedding in the beginning, kind of expecting them to just adopt the castings boulders, might have not been a good hypothesis. Who knows? Perhaps with some different conditions, it might have been something that the worms could have or had to make use of somehow. But if you keep giving them lovely stuff like what we've been giving them lately, with these fruits and veggies assortments and everything else they need and would want, it's hard to imagine them wanting to hang out in the boulders anymore. So, gosh, I really loaded up this feeding zone here, and I do want to have some sort of bedding type stuff, and I've got these tissue kind of pieces of paper here that have been sitting around for so long, and I keep telling myself I got to use them somewhere. I got to put them in somewhere and get them working. So today I finally got a perfect deployment. A little bit of shredded, colorful bedding as a foundation, some crumpled up tissue-ish paper as a cap, and then the customary feeding zone indicator. Alright, yeah, and having the plastic cover on, definitely a big plus to help keep the moisture down in here. And I got a feeling if we were to come back in another 13 days, I think their interest will have turned from what they were enjoying most recently, the plum and strawberry. And I've got a feeling that they're going to be very interested in checking out the cucumber we left for them. So that's it for the check-in, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.